Hi, I'm rickdior, and welcome to part 5 of my Brazilian rhythm series. So today we're going to do some obscure rhythms. Now, not obscure in Brazil, but definitely in the United States. So these are all in my book, Advanced Coordination for Drum Set and Hand Percussion. So today we're going to do Maracatu. Now you heard some of that in my little demo there, as well as Maxixe, and we're going to do Frevo and Afroshay. So we'll start out on page 52 of my book with a rhythm called Maracatu. So you'll see I have these agogo bells up here, and let me show you some Brazilian agogo bells. So these are handheld agogo bells. You can actually clasp them like this. You can ghost in between, and they're really beautiful bells. Now, a lot of times these are tuned in fourths. If you buy LP agogo bells, you probably get some fourths. I'd buy the biggest ones possible because of the volume they put out. Now, these here are Afro percussion bells, and I like these because they're nested inside each other, so I can mount them on a kit and save some real estate. And these have a really nice sound. The only bad thing about them is they will move around a little bit depending on how far you have them extended. Here I have them extended pretty far with this rod. Now that Maracatu rhythm has that singing cowbell part, which is and then under that, we have this caixa pattern, which is a Brazilian snare drum that goes like this. So if you see here, I'm kind of moving in a circle with my hand on these buzzes. Now that feel should have kind of a lilting off-center feel, kind of towards the triplet. And you need to practice that by playing with recordings. That's the best way to do that. And I mentioned all this in my first video, in this series, the first video. So the trick is to do that with one hand, which is tricky. So I'm doing a hit in the center, then I'm going a little closer to the edge, and then back. So if the buzzes are a little closer to the edge. So that's the way I do it. You don't have to do it that way, but I just feel comfortable doing that. And then the coordination over that works like this. Now the feet are doing this kind of baião pattern that we showed you in that video, which is I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I like to bounce the beater on there just a little. Now I'm not pushing it into the head like this. I'm bouncing it. So like this. Now that's the first rhythm, Maracatu, on page 52. So we'll do it slowly so you can hear the whole thing. So a good tempo for this starting out might be around half note equals 100. So quarter note equals 200. So like this. The fastest you should probably go with this would be about 110. Now this is pushing it. So that's a tricky tempo, and I have used it at fast tempos. But again, a good tempo is about 100 to start with for your max tempo. Now, this next one is a left-hand lead Maracatu that uses the same bass drum pattern, but now I'm doing my left hand on the hi-hat like this. And I've done this in several of these videos, but if you remember correctly, it's shaft on the open and then tip on the closed. So, and then that right hand is kind of wandering around the toms playing a sordo rhythm. So, again, like 100. Now, if you want, this one can go much faster. So we could probably do this around 116. So that's Maracatu. Now, Maxixe is a little bit different. And this is one of my favorite rhythms. I do it all the time. And this is a definite sordo rhythm because the toms are doing that. So. Now, in between the toms, you're playing those buzzes that the kasha plays, okay? So what you need to do is get that going first and then add your toms. And it's harder than it looks because you have to keep those two rhythms going, the sordo rhythms and the kasha rhythms. Now the feet do an interesting thing on this groove, or at least on the one I have in the book, which is this. So you see how much I'm stretching that. Now, you can play lots of bass drum patterns. You can actually do a samba pattern over this with a little bit different hi-hat. So. All right, and then you can also play open hi-hat notes like this. So any bass drum pattern, either the bayonne or the samba, works great, or that other kind of disjointed thing that I did earlier. And remember to tripletize that, okay? Now the next Maxixe is in odd time, so it's in 7. And as usual, I'm going to loop this hi-hat. So that's going to do a splash pattern in 4, but I'm going to play 7 over it. So we'll put the click on, let's get that going. Now this could go much faster. We can do this again around 116 and it still sounds pretty good. All right, so now we turn the page to page 53, and we skip down. We're going to do Partito Alto in the next video. But we go to Frevo, and this is a great rhythm. If you listen to any of Hermeto Pascoal records, the great Brazilian multi-instrumentalist, he uses this rhythm all the time. And a lot of times he'll have the pandero playing. He does some really neat things where they'll start the tune slow, and each verse and chorus gets faster and faster till at the end they're doing. It's just great. So I highly recommend checking out some of his recordings. So this first one is rather tricky, and the bass drum can be different than what's written here. You have lots of options. So one thing I like to do is a drop bass drum. Again, that hi-hat's on the upbeat, as you see. You can also play samba. If you do the samba rhythm, make sure you're accenting the certain notes. So, all right, and here the toms go. So you have a one-handed thing doing what maybe two people would do. So all together, and we'll do this rhythm not too fast, about 116. And slower. So that's a good one. Now the next one is the one that can go pretty fast. So this is a real dance rhythm. And the cymbal is basically going to be doing this. So the bell with the shaft of the stick and then the tip on the bow of the cymbal. And the feet do this. All right, so let's play what's written there and then I'll show you some variations. And the variation under it sounds like this. Now you notice I'm doing my cymbal there backwards. So that's definitely a viable alternative to this. one works. They're not both written, but like I always say, these are all interchangeable. The hi-hat rhythms, the bass drum rhythms, and the cymbal for these. Once you get the feel, and the main feel of that is... So that's the main feel of it, and then you're spreading it around the kit. Then we get to Afroshay. This, to me, is one of the more difficult Brazilian rhythms, but it's used a lot. And this is a drop bass drum. So the bass drum is like, it's almost like reggae, where you're going. So if you look at the first one, it sounds like this, slowly. Now a good tempo for this is 118. And it can go faster. Pretty cool rhythm. And the next one is almost a straight reggae kind of rhythm. So you're doing this. And a good tempo for that to start with is around 96. And there's a variation below it that sounds like this. Now this thing can go pretty quick, so let's just up it by around 10 clicks to 106. Pretty fun rhythm. So those four rhythms are things that you might want to use in a jazz setting, even an original, kind of pop thing. I've used some of these drop rhythms in little interludes and introductions. So we'll just play a little for you, and the next video will be Partido Alto. That'll be the last video in this series, and that's kind of a funk Brazilian thing, so you don't want to miss that.